Welcome to the FullyCrypto Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the FullyCrypto Podcast, your home of quality cryptocurrency and blockchain news, reviews, opinion, and more. My name is Mark Hunter, and with me is the man that Brock Pierce called a bit of a Alex Mears.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm alright. I'm staggered he called you that because he's normally a very mild-mannered man, so what did you do to offend him to that degree?
It's his long hair. I told him I was going to cut it.
Oh, well, yeah, that's going to antagonise him. Yeah, that's going to freak him out. I mean, he reacted in an understandable manner. That's fair enough.
Yeah, I don't blame him for it. I would have reacted the same way.
How have you been?
Yeah, not bad actually. Happy it's the weekend. How about you?
Yeah, doing all right. I've been, as you know, I've been farming the shrooms in the last few
Yeah, you've been
days.
very busy shroom farming.
I
And
certainly
these
have.
aren't shrooms you can eat and get high on, mind you.
No, let's make that absolutely clear to the authorities who are bound to be listening. These are digital shrooms, blockchain shrooms.
How's it going for you?
Yeah, I've made about $70.
Oh, that's not bad.
It's all right. I mean, it's not been any great shakes, but it's if you leave it for a few weeks, providing there's no rug pull, it might earn you a little bit of money. You know, bit of extra coming in, saves it sitting there doing nothing. And it's actually quite easy to do, apart from the stupid fees which we've discussed before. It's pretty straightforward to do, I have to say. Uniswap make it a very easy process. You just set how much ETH you want to put in. It tells you how many of your token you can put in. Press a couple of buttons. It's in there. And then when you want to withdraw it, you just withdraw it, and that's it. And you get it back into your MetaMask. So
Nice.
it's not as scary as people say. And I can see now why it was such a big thing when it first kicked off. Because if you're on the ball with it and you plow in loads of ETH and loads of tokens, you can make a mint because the amount of interest you get varies, from day to day with these coins. But if you can find the brand new ones and you're getting hundreds of % a day, I can see why people were getting a bit obsessed with it, because you can earn a fair bit if you're really into it,
But that's cool though. If you do your research, you can make a fair bit of coin, and that's how it should be. That's how stocks are. If you do your research when a new company goes live, you can make a fortune.
Yeah.
So I think it's cool. It's cool that you can make a bit of money from this farming without being a farmer or knowing how to drive a tractor.
And you should be rewarded for having put in the work in the first place to find the research and taking the chance to do it.
Oh, exactly. You're taking the gamble, aren't you?
Yeah.
You should be rewarded for it.
So I was a bit down on it when it first started. I think just because it was everywhere. You couldn't move on crypto Twitter with people talking about this bloody yield farming and stuff. But having experimented with it, I can see why it's a bit of a draw. It's free money, and if you time it right, yeah, you can make a fair bit.
Nice, that's cool.
So, this is one of our news updates where we take a couple of stories from the week and we discuss them and we see what we found of interest. We're going to start with Mr. Justin Sun. Now, when I say those two words, Alex, when I say that name, what comes to mind for you?
Announcement.
An announcement of announcement.
He should honestly work for British Rail, like at every platform. Announcement. There is an announcement coming about your next train.
And then why that would also be useful is he could use all the snake oil he's selling on the tracks to make the trains run faster.
That might be useful, especially in winter. If it's some sort of de-icer, it could be very handy for when that special snow comes.
So the reason why we're talking about him today is that there's this huge news story that The Verge broke a couple of days ago, which is, it's an expose on kind of everything we knew about Justin Sun, but also somehow worse. It's painting a picture of the guy in a very unflattering light. Did you catch up with this week?
I did. I actually had to read through his Twitter feed as soon as he posted it. It was rather entertaining. It was very much it read like he was a bit guilty of something. He was very quick to distance himself from it without saying the others were liars.
Well, this is the really interesting thing. We'll come on to his response later on, but there is certainly something interesting in that. So we haven't got time, unfortunately, to go through the whole piece because we really could sort of rip him to pieces. But the crux of it is that the Virgin interviewed 18 current and former staff members. 3 of those they named, the other 15 they didn't. And they just told The Verge reporters what it was like to work with him and to work for him. They say that he thinks he's a celebrity.
Yeah.
He's got this assistant that brings meals on a platter to his office. There's a guy who carries his bag like a half a foot or a couple of feet behind him in deference. The regular Joes at the office were supposed to call him Sun Zong, which is apparently in Chinese, it's like, I'm terrified of you, is the quote that they use. So can you imagine working in an office with someone like that as your boss?
It would be an absolute nightmare. He sounds like 21st century Hitler.
It really, really does. And it seems that he's brought this Chinese ethos into this American company, because it's all about when TRON bought out BitTorrent, and it was a really easygoing American company, typical kind of tech company, and he came in and just transformed everything into this kind of dictatorial empire where he was just ranting and raving about the place, making all these ridiculous demands and everything about TRON. It was all about TRON and getting as much money in as possible. Like, they say that he had stacks of $100 bills just on his desk, like at random points. There'd be thousands of dollars floating around his office. They didn't know where it came from or where it went. You get that image from what he's put out, and they back it up. They really do back it up with these incredible stories. Was there anything in particular that came up that you noticed that was intriguing for you?
It was more of the work ethic he instilled. Like, he seems like a workaholic. It doesn't matter what time of day it is, what time of night he is. He's always posting on Twitter, and it was a 12-hour day, 6 days a week that really got me. Like, I mean, working 12 hours a day as it is a long time. Doing that 6 days a week, you're going to burn out very fast.
Like you say, there was this 9-6-6 work ethic he instilled. 9 till 6, 6 days a week. He worked 9 till 9, but at the very minimum, he expected them to work this, and they were like shocked by by this thing. But it was his behaviour. He just acted like a spoilt child. Like, and he would fly off the handle at the slightest things. Like, his personal assistant booked a doctor's appointment and sent an Uber to pick him up to go to the appointment. He flipped his lid because he expected the doctor to come to him, and so he fired her. Can you believe that?
That's childish.
He is. He just comes across as this little kind of child emperor who's been given all this money and all this power, which wields it completely improperly. The other thing is, when it came to the BitTorrent situation, so when they were working there, they had this regular Q&A session. They used to just go in like once a week and have a Q&A with all the staff, all the team leaders, and see what was going on. When Sun took over, he got the questions sent to him in advance so he could censor ones he didn't like.
What?
Yeah. And then when it came to this meeting, and he again kicked off because someone had written, what happens to the company if TRX, the token, goes to zero? Apparently he took it, the quote is, he took it extremely personally. He began yelling and threw a tantrum and said, whoever asked this question, we're going to track them down, before threatening to kill their entire family.
What the hell?
And it kind of goes on in this vein, and it talks a lot more about how he was just kind of addicted to the power, and he really was just pushing these platforms on TRON. Oh, this was it. He would, because obviously TRON, the platform, you can put, it's decentralized, so you can put whatever you want on the platform. And as you may know, the most popular apps were gambling apps.
Oh, of course.
So there's loads of these gambling ones that came up, and anything that got popular, he started off by getting developers at the time, the working for TRON, to copy the games, to copy the apps. But eventually, because it's decentralized, you can just grab the source code, created these replicas, and booted the originals off and got all the profit.
They built a cheap app that's free to use, and they've just stolen it from someone who actually invested a lot of money and time into it. And that's very cultural, very Chinese.
He promotes this idea of, freedom for all, digital freedom, decentralize the internet, this kind of thing. But the moment that someone comes up with something that is actually remotely kind of viable, he just acts like a completely centralized body and just steals it and then kicks them off and takes the money for himself. So it's all about all decentralize this, decentralize that. But then the way he operates as a human being, it seems, and the way that he operates his company is the exact opposite. He's just this little dictator that just runs this show like it's his own little private fiefdom.
But did you read the thing about him being With alleged kidney stones.
That was with the Warren Buffett lunch, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
This was so weird at the time. He was all set to have this lunch, and then there was a whole thing came out that they reckon that China had banned him from travelling, and they raided the TRON offices in Beijing, I think it was. And so then he came out and said, "Oh, I can't attend the lunch because of kidney stones," and people were like, "Oh, that's a bit weird." And then it turned out, as expected, that was a complete lie, because the Chinese authorities had been on at him for weeks and weeks, saying, you can't attend, you're not allowed to go. What's the quote? Because what do they call Warren Buffett? A capitalist pig?
Yeah, a capitalist pig.
So they were saying, you are not going to attend this lunch. And so he bowed to their pressure, announced that, he wasn't going to attend because of kidney stones. So again, it just shows that he acts like he's in control and everything, but he still has paymasters higher up.
Exactly, he has someone who's controlling him almost. It's worrying, it's scary. I mean, yeah, if you're in Tron, I'd be terrified of this right now. Are you decentralized, or are you just like Chinese Bitcoin? Or Chinese Ethereum, I should say, perhaps, because that's what Tron is, isn't it? It's just a copy of Ethereum, just done badly.
He's not gonna succeed, because whereas with Ethereum they've got hundreds of thousands of developers working on the platform. They really put their heart and soul into it. You can tell they wanted to succeed because of what it can offer. Half of them don't get paid, but he just takes the latest thing and makes an absolute hash of what he's trying to do. Copies and pastes it from somewhere else normally. Like this whole thing with this BT Live. He wanted to create this completely uncensored live video streaming platform. And the moment they brought up the fact that you could have people filming themselves murdering people and it would still be there, he basically said, well, let's put that further down the page so people have got to scroll to find it.
Oh, God.
That's the attitude that he's got. The whole platform's going to implode with this behaviour.
Yeah, it's like a totally messed up idea. Like, don't just move it further down so you got to scroll to find it. Just get rid of it, block it, delete it, ban the user. It doesn't have to mean you're centralized. It can mean you have standards.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you can just say, okay, well, any content containing this will automatically be deleted by algorithms. It doesn't make you centralized. It just says, these are the standards of our decentralized platform. As long as you adhere to these, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Just don't kill people live on stream. Don't rape people. Don't steal. Don't break the law. That's, do whatever you want. Just make sure you're law-abiding when you do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, we could go on about this piece for a long, long time, but to summarise, the 3 ex-employees who sued him for a number of charges, including fraud and harassment, to what they term as whistleblower retaliation. They wanted a public trial, but his lawyers requested arbitration, and the judge agreed with Justin Sun. Ooh. So it says that the lawyers for 2 of these guys sent the lawsuit complaint to the US Attorney at the Department of Justice and never heard back. So they've lodged these complaints, but it seems that Sun's going to get away with behaving like this. We should mention his response before we move on. The moment the story came out, a very short while later, he posted like a 13 long tweet thread.
12.
And the first 11 were him basically saying how amazing Tron is and how amazing BitTorrent is. Didn't even address the allegations until tweet 11?
Yeah, it was towards the end he addressed it, and he basically said they're just making it up. He didn't bother to, address it earlier, didn't really say much more. It was very much, it's not true. That's it, full stop, gone.
But he only said the words of those 3 guys aren't true. He didn't mention anything about anybody else who contributed to the piece.
Exactly.
Now, that may be reading too much into it, but if it was me, I'd make a denial of everything in that, not just what 3 people said. So he's ignored the rest of the article.
I think that's where he's slipped up a bit. I think he's hoping that the Tron community doesn't pick up on that. Because if someone, if a group of people says something, you don't say, oh, whatever, person 1 and 2 say is false. What about 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 3? They're just, they're just true, but you just picked out 2 that aren't.
And it's such a weak denial, the way he phrased it. To go on about how amazing your product is for the first 11 tweets and then just finally say, it's also not true. It's so weak.
Yeah, it's not good. It's just overwhelmingly positive that Justin Sun is an absolute...
You're listening to the FullyCrypto Podcast.
So, the second piece we wanted to discuss today is regarding the real-world use of blockchain technology, which is not something that we've had a chance to really talk about in the past 3 years. But IoTex, one of these many, many blockchains that's out there, has actually come good and provided the blockchain for a security camera from a company called Tenvis. So Tenvis and IoTex have come together. Tenvis have made what they call the UCam, and it's powered by the IoTex blockchain, which means that all your data is stored not in the cloud, which is what a lot of IP security cameras use, but it's powered by the IoTex blockchain. So in theory, it's a lot more secure and no one can access it. So this in itself is quite interesting, but it's just the fact that for me, this is the first real world example of blockchain technology in the last 3 years since it got all hyped up. It's the first time in all that time that we've actually got a real use case for blockchain technology in the home. So I'm quite excited by that.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're excited. I'm not as excited. I'm very dubious of this.
Why are you dubious?
Because all the hacks of cameras, like in the home, so far have been IP based, not cloud based. So I've read all the features on it. I've done quite a bit of research on this too, like yourself, and it doesn't say anything about protecting real time. This is more about protecting data that's stored. So if someone real time accesses your network, then they can still access your camera and talk to your children, like they have done all over the US with these Ring cameras and whatnot. So for me, that's still a big red flag. Just the fact you're storing the data on blockchain rather than the cloud doesn't make it more secure in the real time. I mean, someone, say you got one set up in your bedroom, they could still watch you boffing your missus. They just can't access the history of it. So as long as they access it in the real time at the right moment, they could still get very incriminating stuff. It's just a fact of where it saves it.
But the real-time hack situation is not something that other cameras say they can kind of protect against. And the IoTex UCam then, that doesn't make that claim either, does it?
Oh no, exactly. But I think the fact by saying it's secured by blockchain technology makes you think it's completely secure. I think a lot of people will read that and think it's 100% secure. I mean, I did the wife test on this. Like, I ran this past my wife, and she said, okay, well, no one can hack it. But that's not true. That's just they've used blockchain as a buzzword in their product description to make you think it's unhackable. It's unhackable. I'm not going to even say that, because I can't prove it's unhackable. I can't prove it's not. But, it's potentially unhackable, for the history. But the real time, anybody could steal that with a base of knowledge. I mean, who has actually changed their router admin login? I mean, who's done that? So, who's changed their basic Wi-Fi password? Who's changed that? So you've got to look at who's actually taken the basic security measures to secure their network. Because even if you've got that network compromised, you can still steal anything on it, whether it's archived or not, because the record of it's still going to be there, and you can just follow it through. You can be like, okay, well, this is my device. You can get the keys off it, because it's going to send them through a packet somehow. So if you're already in the network, you can use a packet sniffer like Wireshark, and you just wait for the camera to transmit, and you can decrypt everything. So I think it depends on how secure your network is to begin with.
It doesn't seem to say that it's unhackable. I think I'd imagine they've been very, very careful with how they phrased it, because you're right, they need to be very careful that they give an honest appraisal of what blockchain technology can do in this case. Did you find somewhere where it made that unhackable claim?
No, not at all. But I just feel by their use of blockchain so often, that's what they've replaced unhackable with. They've replaced unhackable or ultra secure, no one's better than us, just with blockchain. They've made blockchain out to be this magical unicorn that's going to save you and your videos and your loved ones from everything the world has to offer. But in reality, it's just someone else to smack your data. It's still a cloud. It's just a decentralized cloud, not a centralized one that they own. So if your data gets nicked, they're not the ones to blame.
The reason I was quite interested in it isn't necessarily because I didn't really think much of it, but if you'd have asked me to think about it for a little bit, I would have maybe come to the same conclusion as you, that actually it doesn't solve the problem of the security, but it offers greater security, given that, you know, cloud hacks are fairly common, especially if you've bought a Chinese camera that you've signed up to some random Chinese cloud service. You know, who knows who's looking at that anyway. So
Justin Sun.
So at least it's much more secure than that. So I think for me it was quite interesting to see a physical representation of all these promises that we've been given about how good it is. And yeah, blockchain isn't going to solve all the problems, but at least in this case it does what it says it will do. And I think that's what's quite exciting, is finally we have something that blockchain based that does what it says it will do, and you can use it in your home for an actual genuine purpose.
Exactly, but I mean, my question is again, what does it store on the blockchain? It doesn't go into saying what's stored on the blocks. Like, it doesn't say, is like 200 hours of recording of mine going to be stored on the blockchain? How big is your block going to be if you're storing 200 hours of 4K video? So my question is, what are they actually storing on there? Because they don't say. They're saying, okay, fine, it's full 1080p. But even so, you got like 2 days worth of that, your block size is going to be insane if you've got more than 5 users. So my question is it secured? Or maybe it's on their server. It's all stored on their server, perhaps. And let's say your private keys are on a blockchain, need to authenticate it on a blockchain. So you need to authenticate your access through the blockchain, maybe some crazy 2FA app they've invented using their blockchain. I don't know. They've not gone into detail about how they're using it. Because if you're going to store 200 hours of 1080p from thousands of users all over the world, your blockchain is going to be very big. And no one's going to be able to validate that other than you. You're going to have the same problem BSV does, where it's not decentralized because so few people can actually afford to run the tech. You've only got big companies doing it. And this is a relatively small thing. Like, a very few people are going to be running IOTeX nodes. I mean, I don't. I mean, does anyone else out there run one? So are you validating, you got to think who's actually validating that tech. So could this just be another Chinese thing where, a Chinese company said, okay, we're going to call it blockchain. It is a blockchain, but we're the only validators. We're the only people hosting these nodes. We're the only people storing this stuff, this data. I mean, for me, wouldn't trust this anyway. I'd rather fork out the money, buy some sort of network storage system, and save it there and do a backup locally with a SSD. Simply because you're the only one that touches the data. You're the one that touches the recording. You're the one that knows where it is. And as long as you've done the correct security settings in your home network, no one will find it. No one will know you even got a camera. So I think you need to be a bit careful with these things. They're just using blockchain as a buzzword.
Strong words.
But I'm a bit cynical. I'm very skeptical. I don't use Google. I don't use all these things anyway. So maybe it's just me being a bit paranoid. I don't know.
No, I think you've got a point. I have to say, I wouldn't... if I was given one to try, I'd happily test one. But I wouldn't go out and buy one. I'm not going to rush off to Amazon and buy one just because it gets blockchain powered and I think it's more secure. Because I agree with you. You don't know who these people are, and it doesn't feel in the immediate future any different than buying something from any other company and signing up to their cloud service.
Oh, exactly. I mean, for example, I have a couple of cameras in my house. I sync them to my NAS. They don't even know the internet exists, these cameras. The way I've set them up is they don't know it exists. They don't have access. They just sync everything they record to my NAS. I mean, they're nanny cams. But I think it's how you use them. If you use them with some sort of intelligence, then it can be safe. But if you're just going to buy it, plug it in, think you're safe, you're probably not safe whatsoever. Because if that's you, then you've not changed your admin password on your router and your password's still password.
But that's what most people do. There's not many people that are going to have that insight that you've just described with all those precautions that you've taken. So I wouldn't say I'm as cynical as you, but I'm not completely, blown away by this. It needs testing. It needs proof. It's the first one, and the first one of anything is always rubbish.
But they don't even put blockchain in the key feature list. I mean, if you're going to build the world's first of something, you don't put only 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi on there. You're very careful with the list of key features. You've got 4K HD, not 1080p only. Instead of motion detection, you want something like advanced motion detection. You want, you're going to big it up big time. You're going to go all out, aren't you? You're not just going to go, okay, it's got blockchain, so let's just put the baby features on there. 1080p has been around for 10 years now.
But the camera's not the big thing, is it? The camera's not the selling point. I reckon they've just grabbed one of their old cameras, they've painted it black rather than white, and it's now powered by antics.
Oh, exactly.
It doesn't seem to me that the camera is the selling point. The camera is just standard.
It's very basic. It's not, I wouldn't even say standard. This is basic. You could pick this up from your local hardware store or electronics store for less than $20.
If it does what it says it can do, then I think it could be a step in a quite promising direction. But you're absolutely right, it doesn't solve, there are many things it doesn't solve. One of those is kind of hacking at source. And it's interesting because I'm just looking now at one of their posters and the tagline is own your privacy. But that's not true.
Yeah, how are you owning your privacy by sending your data to someone else? I know it's a blockchain potentially, but you're still not owning your privacy. Owning your privacy, you're putting on your own network that you own. Like do you know what I mean? Like I own my recordings because I store them myself locally. I don't own my privacy because I send it to someone else. I think they're using blockchain as a buzzword, and it's just a regular camera on a regular cloud service subscription thing, and you're using blockchain somehow just to log into it. And because of that, they can say it. I think that's all they're doing. But again, I could be wrong. I'd love to test this out. As soon as this finishes, I'm going to go try buy one, and I'm going to pull it apart and try and abuse it.
Well, I think that's kind of wrapped up that one for now. It will be interesting to see how that goes, and it only launched a few days ago, so we'll see what happens. We'll keep an eye on that, and yeah, if we can get hold of if anyone's listening from Tenvis or IoTex, please, if you want us to test your wonderful camera, you can send us a sample. We'll happily test it for you. In fact, I'd love to get my hands on it and see how it works. I think that's part of the interest for me, is seeing what something looks like on the blockchain when you've got like a physical thing with video. How, like you said, how have they got that on there? It'd be interesting to see how they pull it off. Right, well, I'm off to farm some more shrooms.
All right, Master Shroom Farmer. Have a good one, boy.
You can catch us on all the socials at FullyCrypto, and Alex, the wonderful FullyCrypto website is
FullyCrypto.com.
Indeed it is. Thank you guys for listening once again, and we'll speak to you again next week for another episode of the FullyCrypto Podcast. Ta-ta!
Ta-ta, have an amazing week, children.